Welcome, Kandis. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. How are you?
I am good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, for some of our listeners that may not know who you are, do you mind just taking a moment just to let people know a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I consider myself a dream life strategist, a dream life strategist. So helping people to overcome their fears, to go out there and create their best life. I'm an author, I'm a coach, I'm a podcast host, and I am the leader of the Yolo revolution. So based in the idea that we only are guaranteed one life here on this planet. And so how do we overcome the thoughts and fears that are holding us back so that we can get out there and live our very best life?
I love that. So, overcoming your fears so you can live your best life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with those that are listening to the podcast, because I am a voice coach, and I've noticed in my coaching that it is a lot fear-based, that people are afraid to use their voice and speak up. Uh, what are some sort of things that people can start to do to get over that fear if they're, really heavily sitting in that place of fear and can't get out of it?
Yeah, fear. I think the most important thing to remember is that fear is a creation of our mind, right? Fear it's not a real thing. It is a thought that we have created. Like our mind has a thought about something that may happen in the future that poses some negative event to us, right? So it's an idea that something negative could happen, and we attach to it and we start to think about it. And our thoughts then create a physiological response in our bodies, right? So that's the nervousness. The heart starts to increase, right? You start to maybe shake a little bit. You start to sweat, right? Your stomach gets upset. Like all these things start to happen when we create this thought. But it's just that. It's just a thought. It's a belief or an idea, right? And so we attach to that. Yeah, go ahead. I think you wanted to say something there.
I just got so excited because when you said physiological response, that's what I notice a lot in people's voices is when they're nervous, they start to quiver, or you can hear it in the voice. Their breath gets shallow. They can't support their voice. And so they lose that stamina and power. And I've always had this thought and this belief and theory in my coaching that the thoughts that we think affect how we speak. So that's really interesting. So, do you think then if people would shift their thoughts from being negative, in some way reframe it to be positive, or inspire them or excite them in that moment, that perhaps could change that physiological response and therefore shift their voice?
100%. Right. So there's actually a couple of factors that come into what you're saying there with the fear and the voice, right? So one is the physiological response. You start to shake, you start to, all those different things that sort of come out in the way that you speak, right? Or maybe you start to get flustered or whatever it is, right? But you start to have that physiological response, and now you're shaking, you're quivering, you're not having that direct delivery. And then there's also the fact that when you get really fear-based, right, you're going into your fight or flight. That is what fear is. It turns on your stress system, it turns on your fight or flight. And what happens then is that it takes away energy in your body from your prefrontal cortex, because it has to send it all to the fight or flight response, right? It now thinks, oh my gosh, are we in danger? And your body starts to activate in preparation of danger, right? But there's not actual danger, there's just fear. And those are two different things, right? And then what happens is that shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for sort of being relational with other people, problem solving, calm thinking, right? So that's how often you'll also start to mumble your words. You may start to have more pauses, or you may forget your lines, or you may, right? All these different things start to come out because it's actually your body has taken energy away from the center that you need in that moment to perform your best. And so not only are we having that physiological response, but we're having the in our brain as well, right? So we're unable to speak. And so what you said earlier is about shifting that idea of what fear is. And physiologically, fear and excitement are almost identical, except they don't trigger the fight or flight.
The excitement doesn't trigger the fight or flight, right, or fright.
Fight or the fight or flight.
Gotcha. So if you're in a place of excitement, you won't go to that trying to run away, that fear. But if you're in the fear, then you go into that. So it's a different part of the brain.
It is. Yeah. So you get fired up in your amygdala, which is like your basic part of your brain when you start to feel the fear. But if you say to yourself, oftentimes, now I struggled with anxiety, right? I had like overwhelming anxiety for 5 years where like, I was like, okay, I can't live like this anymore. This is ridiculous. Right. And I had to start to shift when I started to feel that fear and it would overtake me. It was like, is there any way that I'm excited right now?
Yeah.
Is this fun? Is there some way that I can shift from that fear-based response into some form of excitement?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So first step is to acknowledge that you're in that fear or anxiety. And then once you have that awareness, having something in place for yourself that works for you, where you can trigger an excitement response, something to get you out of the fear.
Yeah, you can trigger excitement. That's amazing. Some people, it takes practice, right? Because your brain's going to say, this isn't exciting. This is scary. This is scary AF, right? Right. And you may have this kind of conflict when you first start trying to shift it like that, but that's okay, right? And that's to be expected. And, everything that I teach and go through is about how do we not allow the brain to take over, right? Our mind to take over. We can control our mind, even though our mind often thinks it can control us.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that it's a fear, differentiating that between fear and actual danger, right? Danger is imminent. Danger is happening. Something bad is going to happen right now. Fear is something bad could possibly maybe happen, but also maybe not, but I'm going to focus on the fact that maybe it will. And that's fear, right? Is you just fixate on this possible outcome that you don't want. And so when you can even just start to recognize that and say, okay, what is this fear really? And start to shift the thoughts. Now, in the beginning, it might not be easy to say, okay, you know what? I'm really scared that I'm going to screw up and I'm not going to get the role. And then how often, or I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to show off my business the way that I want. I'm going to look stupid. I'm going to look whatever, right? I'm not going to, however you look at it, right? This is usually the fears that we get in before we start talking as the face of our business or whatever it is that we're doing. And it's like, okay, well, and then what? And then what will happen? Right? And the worst case scenario is what you're going to feel silly, or you're not going to get that role or whatever that is, right? But is it really the end all be all of your life? And so really putting it into context and realizing that just as equally as it could go that negative way, it could go the positive way. And so instead of, I think a lot of people say, like flip it completely. Like I'm not, maybe if being excited is too much for you, maybe just going that little step of like, well, the worst that could happen is this, or what if it goes really well, right? And sort of just flipping that backwards. But number one is just noticing that fear isn't real.
Yeah.
You created it. Your mind created it for you. And then you attach to it.
And I was just listening to your podcast, and I think it was in your most recent episode. You were saying something about we have 90,000 thoughts per day, and 85% of them are repetitive and 90% of them are negative.
So it's up to 60,000. Yeah. But yeah, we're telling ourselves negative stuff on repeat all day.
So if we keep having those negative, repetitive thoughts about, oh, I'm not good enough, or what if this doesn't work? Before we get up to do an audition or get up to do a webinar or, speak in some sort of on some sort of live stage, if we keep telling ourselves that, then the outcome is going to perhaps be negative because we're saying all these negative thoughts. We're not setting ourselves up for success.
100%.
Wow.
And your body is physiologically responding to each one of those. And then we wonder why we maintain these high levels of stress and depression, even, right? Like things, it just fuels this physiological negative response inside of your body. And that's not how we're meant to live. And
this is blowing my mind. Oh my goodness. This is so great. Okay, wait. So Kandis, then how do you do the opposite? Like how do you, if you're having so many thoughts a day, and obviously you can't control that, like you're having so many, so you're not even registering the majority of them, right? How do you shift that?
Great question. So when we talk about these statistics, right, it's like the average brain, the average mind that is just running around out there doing your daily stuff, driving somewhere, and you get in the car and then all of a sudden you're there, right? How many times have you done something like that? You're like, oh, I have to go to this place. You don't even remember getting there. Which route did you take? Like all of a sudden you're there and you're like, huh, how did that happen? And right, it's because our mind is gone in one thought per second is basically what that boils down to, right? One thought per second of your waking hours, which is immense. And so it turns into just being present, right? If I said to you, Katherine, I want you to run a 20-mile marathon every single day for the next 30 days. Like, how would you respond to that? Like, oh yeah, sure. This sounds like I can totally do it.
Yeah. No, thanks.
No, right? Or like a triathlon every single day. Like we recognize that our body would not be able to keep up with that pace, right? Running that level each and every day, your body at some point is going to give out. And yet our mind is the only muscle that we believe should function at its highest capacity all the time without giving it a break.
Wow. No wonder I'm so tired all the time.
Your brain's doing a lot of thinking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. This is crazy. Okay.
It is crazy. And it's actually not that difficult to flip. Okay. So the more that you practice stillness of the mind. Now, I teach some meditations and, I love to do like a seated meditation. I've done like weeks in silent meditation retreats. Like, I love that stuff. It's not easy, but I don't think on the regular person's day-to-day schedule, that's what we're going to want to do to clear our mind, to spend 4 hours sitting on a cushion doing a meditation every single day. So you can integrate it into your daily life. Yeah. And so, you may have heard me talk about this before, but it's the easiest, most simple way to benefit from any type of meditation or mindfulness is to do it while you're doing a day-to-day regular activity.
Oh, I love that, because I have never been one to find it easy to meditate, to sit still and lie down and have that time. How do you do it? How do you multitask? How do you do it in your day-to-day?
So in fact, it's the opposite of multitasking.
Oh, true, right? See, this is why I need meditation.
How do I do? I love it though, but
I'm still trying to multitask with the meditation. But how do you put it in your day-to-day? I won't multitask the meditation, I promise.
I just loved that, because I am really kind of saying that you can multitask and do it at the same time, but it is the opposite of what we're effectively doing. And basically, like, what's something that you do every single day?
Make coffee.
Make coffee. Perfect. Right. So that can be your signal that you're going to go into what I call an informal meditation. right? So, okay, I'm going to make my coffee now. So, I'm just going to use my example of how I make my coffee, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go make coffee. So maybe I just got out of bed and I'm very intentional with the way that I walk to the coffee pot, right?
Oh.
And I open the cupboard, right? So instead, normally what we do is we wake up in the morning, we're like, oh, I got to get that coffee. And we go in and we're like, okay. And then after that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to write my to-do list. And then, oh, I got to prepare that slide for the whatever. And then, and then you like grab the coffee out of the kitchen and you start preparing it and you're thinking about your day and, oh, I got to make that phone call, right? And so you're not present.
Yeah.
And so it's really just about bringing your awareness to what you're doing. So I'm going to make coffee now. There we go. From that moment until the coffee is, you're drinking it, you are 100% present in what you're doing.
Love it.
So how does it feel to walk? If you're wearing socks, then, notice, is it slipping on the floor? How does it feel? If you're barefoot, is the floor cold? Is it warm? How does it feel? Right? Which muscles, you can even go into like, which muscles do you feel contracting when you're walking, right? Yeah. Being so present. So often we think of meditation as like, I have to clear my mind 100%, which, I mean, you can, most people can't, right?
Yeah. So meditation is more about being present and aware in the moment.
So there are different types, but the most common one that we all know and that has really infiltrated into the West is mindfulness meditation.
Gotcha.
Which is exactly that, which is just being present in the moment without judgment. So not trying to judge things, not trying to think about whether things are good or bad or whatever, just being, noticing, right? Yeah. And, there's things like transcendental meditation and all these different ones, but the basic form of meditation is presence. And this is what we know with all of the studies and everything we've done in the West is the way to change the way your mind thinks, to make it stop thinking about 60,000 things a day and allow it to be more focused, more right in line with what you need to do, right? So it allows you then to notice the thoughts that are coming in. So while you're making your coffee, you're going to start thinking about that call, but you're like, oh no, I'm supposed to be making the coffee, right? Yeah. So you give yourself something else to think about. What does it feel like when you touch that handle? Is that handle hot? Is it cold? When you turn on the tap to get the water, feel the water, just notice how it feels, right? So you're so present. When you start to think about something else, you bring yourself back to the coffee. And the more times you do this, right? So then you start doing that every day. Then maybe you add in when you drive to wherever it is you drive every day, right? You do it in the car. You notice what's coming by. You notice, the feeling of the steering wheel. You notice that new tree. And I guarantee if you do this while you're driving on your street, you're going to notice like 25 new things in the first week. You're going to be like, oh, I didn't realize that person's door was so bright blue. I didn't notice that, right? You're going to start to see all these things. But what you're doing is you're slowing the mind and you're training the mind to be slower. And you're also training yourself to be able to watch the thoughts come in so that then you get to choose which ones you take.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So this would be a really great thing to do before you would speak, like if you're going to do an Instagram live or a webinar or an audition or whatever it would be, to take 5 minutes and just be present and aware in the moment right before that activity of speaking.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something that I noticed worked really well. It helped me when I had anxiety. And it's something that just became like a staple go-to if I started to notice that physiological anxious response, was to find something in the room, like a lamp, and describe it in your mind in as much detail as possible. So I have a lamp here, right? Oh, it's in this color. It looks kind of soft. The light comes out through these little tiny holes everywhere, and it's creating a pattern on the wall. It has a brass thing. It's about 1 centimeter in width. It's like, right. And you just start you just describe it. And as soon as you've described it as much as you possibly can, and if you still need some more time to calm down, then pick something else.
Yeah.
Right. and just describe it, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can get into it, but the idea is that you are just focused on one thing and one thing only. And that can be your breath too, right? That's also the meditation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really great. I usually do that, focus on my breath, and that helps calm me down right before I speak. I had a thought. It's really fascinating for actors because when we're performing, because we're being a character, so it's slightly different than if you were using your voice in a different aspect of anything. But as characters, as actors, it's about being present in the moment and watching out for when you start thinking about your lines or all the things behind the stage, behind the screen. You want to be present in the moment and connected to the other person. So it's very much similar to what you're talking about with the meditation.
Yeah. And I mean, I've never acted, but one thing I have heard through the grapevine is that the ability to be present and basically knock out everything else, your worries, your whatever, what is that person thinking, or even just your next lines, like you said, right? That is the key to a really spectacular performance.
Yeah.
Right.
And that could be as a character or as yourself. Boom. This is so exciting. Wow. And it really is a different feeling. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, because, that's what I notice whenever I've done any sort of form of acting, but then also when I'm in the moment on a stage as myself, that it does feel like everything sort of goes away. And it is a sort of heightened feeling in your body of, it's almost like you can't, after you finish, you can't remember what just happened.
Totally.
And that's when you're being really present in the moment, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I personally experience it many different ways. I've experienced it that way. I think often, right, you've probably experienced this too. Like maybe it's whether you're on a webinar or you're auditioning for that role or you're in the role or whatever, right? And as you're about to do it, you're like, oh God, right? That's when the nerves come in. That's when the fear comes in, right? You start thinking all these different things of how it could go wrong. And then you're like, do I know my lines? But once you're in that sort of flow, in that groove space, and you're just in it, even this conversation, right? Like, at the beginning, it feels different than when you're right in the middle of the conversation. In the beginning, oh, is my mic on? Oh, is this, right? You have more things going on in your mind. And when you can clear that away and you practice clearing that away more frequently, you can tap into that so much faster.
Yeah.
Right. Preferably right at the beginning. And I know what you're talking about is like that. Oh, did that just like come out the way that it did? And, you just go through the performance or you go through that conversation or you go through the scheduled webinar, or whatever it is that you're doing. And at the end, like I've had experiences where I'm like, did I even say what I was supposed to say? Like, and I'll go back and I'm like, I said that better than I ever could have possibly thought I was going to say it. Right. And it's just being in that present and being yourself and being so aware.
And it's such a great feeling as well when you finish something, go, wow, that felt so good. I don't know what happened, but that was different.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this. This is such a great conversation. So I want to switch gears because I know you recently have written a book. Is that right?
Yeah.
And it's called Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. And I just obviously loved the title because it's very much in tune with, what I talk about in terms of voice, of getting out of your head and really connecting to the other person and sharing your voice with the other person. So where did that come from? What inspired you to write this book?
It inspired me. And I mean, I had this idea of writing this book because there's so many people that I come in contact with just in life, in business, in everything that I have done, that would always tell me how, oh, they wish they could do this or they wish they could do that, but it's not possible for them. Right. And I used to be that person, right? Like way back in the day, I thought, I thought the same thing. I had all these thoughts of why I couldn't do what I wanted to do, until one day I shifted that and like everything changed for me. Right. And moving through life, right? Then I was like traveling. I lived in Thailand for 5.5 years, and I would come home and people would be like, oh man, you're so lucky. Like, I wish I could do that. And I'm like, so why don't you? Oh, because this, and oh, because that. And right. Oh, I don't have enough money. I have too many responsibilities. I have kids. I have whatever, right? We're constantly in our heads about what we can or cannot do. And we create our reality, right? And it's our thoughts, right? Everything that holds us back in life, well, not every single thing, but the majority of things that hold us back in life is a creation of our mind. It's a thought, it's a fear, it's something that's telling us that we cannot. And it can mainly be traced back to fear, right? Is this, you're scared to go forward. You're scared that you don't have what it takes. You're scared that you're not enough. You're scared, right? It has a million different faces. But it was basically around seeing all these people, and some really close to me, that just get so caught up in their minds about life and what it's supposed to be like and how they should be like and all these different things. And I named the book Get Out of Your Head because I was talking to someone and I still didn't have a title. And someone was just going on and on about all these thoughts in their head about why their life sucked, basically, right? And I just said, oh my God, will you just get out of your head and start living your life? And I thought, oh, I like that.
I like it too.
Thanks. But I'd said that to so many people, right? Get out of your head, man. Just get out of your head, right? Like we create so many stories, and we need to tap into so much more. We need to tap into our body, our connection to the universe and the world, and, tap into our intuition and all of this stuff. Like, we lead from this place in this modern world where we're told that thinking from your mind is the best way to go through life. Or for some people, that's the only way they know of going through life, right? It's just this mind-based, logical thinking brain world. And the world is about so much more than that. And if we only live our lives in our heads or with our heads, despite thinking that we're moving in the right direction, we're most often keeping ourselves stuck.
Oh, wow. Very powerful. And so what is also this YOLO revolution? I know what YOLO is. You only live once, right?
Yes.
And so it's basically just seizing the moment.
Yeah. And right. I think this goes back. So I talk a lot about what we have been told and what we believe based on what we've been told and what we've experienced in our lives, who we should be. Yeah. What is success, right? We've been told our whole lives who's beautiful, who's not, who's successful, who's not, what's the right job to have, what's the wrong job to have, like who's important, who's not, It just goes on. And quite frankly, I'm tired of it. And I think everybody is, they just don't always know that, right? We've been brought up in this world that is based on what our society, government, parents, family, culture, all these people are telling you what your life should be. And we are breeding millions of unhappy, depressed, stressed people. And we only have this one life, right? And that we're guaranteed. I mean, I believe in past lives and other lives and all that sort of stuff, but we are only guaranteed this one. I can't say for sure what's going to happen. And yet so many people are living their lives, doing things that they don't like doing, hanging out with people they don't like, right? Trying to fit their life into this box of what they've grown up being told that they should do or how they should be. And frankly, being miserable. And it's a wake-up call. It's a call to say, this is the only chance that you get that we can be sure of. And so stop living it feeling like you're not fulfilled. Stop living it when you know that there's something more out there. And so it's my call to help people get from this place of, you know what, this isn't a life that lights me up. Like a lot of people believe that life can't fully light you up each and every day. And it can. And so it's my goal through the Yolo revolution is to get people to understand that and change the past programming that says that that's how things have to be, and that you actually get to choose how you want to move your life forward. And it's on you, not on everybody else.
Oh, I love it. That's very inspiring. Well, because, I went through that recently myself. And so I get it now. You have one life. And if something is not quite feeling right, isn't quite aligned with who you are today, maybe it was aligned with who you were yesterday, then take action on it and do what feels right. So I think that's very, very powerful. So that's what your podcast is all about. Is that correct? Is that where
it is? Yeah. So that's sorry.
I was just going to say, so people can find you on the YOLO Revolution podcast, right?
Yes, correct. It's the Yolo Revolution podcast. And it is also a 12-week program that I bring people through that are feeling unfulfilled and stuck in life, that want to make that shift and go from stuck and unfulfilled to actually out there and loving what you do and all that good stuff.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. So when are you teaching that next? When does that open up?
Early 2022.
Amazing. Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Kandis. It's been so great to chat with you. And it's been very eye-opening for me. I'm going to go meditate and make some coffee.
I love it.
Taking you up on that. Where can people find you then if they're interested in your program for 2022, or to listen to your podcast, or any other way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. My website, KandisJames.com. Make sure you check the spelling on that. It's with a K. KandisJames.com. Also on the Instagrams, I do share stuff on there as well. But yeah, KandisJames.com. I also have a free audio course right now called Find Your Courage that helps you step out of your fear, so you can get prepared to live that best life. And that's KandisJames.com/courage.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kandis. It has been such a pleasure to chat with you. What about your book as well?
That is also on the website, KandisJames.com/book. It's all on there. So everything you need to get in touch with me is on that website.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated chatting with you. It's been very eye-opening for me. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.